When Steven Spielberg's prehistoric blockbuster Jurassic Park burst onto the scene back in 1993, critics and audiences alike were blown away by the thought of dinosaurs roaming the Earth once more. Hollywood had always somehow found a way to make the impossible seem real, yet the science behind this dino epic seemed unsettlingly sound. With just a tiny bit of DNA, could we really bring the dinosaurs back to life? While we may still be a ways away from having T-Rex and Triceratops wandering down our streets, scientists have actually begun employing genetic techniques featured in Jurassic Park to resurrect long-dead species. In fact, thanks to a discovery made in one of the coldest places on Earth, these researchers are mere moments away from bringing one extinct creature back from the dead. The Siberian wilderness has long been considered one of the last truly unexplored regions of the globe. With a total area of over 5 million square miles, Siberia accounts for 77% of Russia's total landmass yet holds just 27% of its population. This low population density can almost certainly be attributed to the dramatic weather conditions that ravage Siberia each year. The winters here are especially brutal, lasting nearly 11 months in some regions and dropping average year-round temperatures well below freezing. Yet Siberia has still remained a subject of intrigue over the years, particularly for those concerned with Earth's prehistory. Archaeologists and amateur fossil hunters alike continue to trek the province's icy tundras in search of long-forgotten relics of the past. The sub-zero temperatures found here form the perfect environment for preservation, creating a virtual treasure trove of organic remains just waiting to be unearthed. Bones, teeth, and fur are commonplace, with even fully preserved carcasses sometimes jutting from the ice. Yet there's one creature whose remains have long been held as the holy grail for bone collectors. Dubbed white gold, fully formed woolly mammoth tusks are some of the most sought-after fossils in the world. This is especially true in China, where traditional ivory carvers are in desperate need of material following the country's ban on imported elephant tusks. As a result, high-quality mammoth ivory can fetch tens of thousands of dollars on the Chinese market. With such high demand for this prehistoric ivory, scientists from the Siberian Northeastern Federal University knew they had to act quickly when they heard a rumor that mammoth tusks were sticking out of the permafrost on northern Siberia's Mawe-Lyakhovsky Island. After traversing miles of ice and frozen earth, the researchers arrived at the dig site and immediately struck gold. Not only were both of the mammoth's tusks perfectly preserved, but nearly its entire body was as well. Thanks to the frigid conditions of the Siberian tundra, the animal's head, trunk, torso, and 3 of its legs remained intact despite centuries of decomposition. The mammoth also oozed a dark liquid, which the researchers believed was blood. Realizing the extraordinary nature of their find, the scientists carefully removed the carcass from the ice and arranged for its transport back to Yakutsk. Once there, they convened a group of mammoth experts to conduct an autopsy on the animal. Dubbing her Buttercup, the team used carbon dating to determine that the mammoth lived some 40,000 years ago and died in her mid-50s. Tragically, she had not died of natural causes, instead, she had been eaten alive by wolves. Yet the most significant discovery made during the autopsy was that the black liquid was, in fact, prehistoric blood. After extracting a small vial from the carcass, the researchers could now finally take the first step in doing something no one had ever dreamed was possible: bringing woolly mammoths back to life. For years, the prospect of resurrecting the extinct species had remained a noble yet unrealistic pursuit for scientists due to the lack of available intact mammoth DNA. Yet with Buttercup's blood, more specifically, the preserved hemoglobin within, the possibility of actually doing so was now within reach. In 2015, renowned molecular engineer and geneticist George Church assembled a team in order to put this plan into action. With Buttercup's DNA, they planned to create mammoth clones genetically identical to those that roamed Earth 40,000 years ago. While this may sound like something out of Jurassic Park, cloning has actually become a relatively common practice in the world of animal conservation. As we speak, scientists across the globe are at work attempting to develop viable clones of extinct species. But even with modern technology at their disposal, the success rate of cloning remains dishearteningly low. Just 1% of clones actually fully develop, and those that do typically die shortly after birth. Therefore, Church and his team were forced to abandon the pursuit of a true genetic clone in favor of a more grounded approach. By taking Buttercup's DNA and the DNA of its closest living relative, the Asian elephant, Church hoped to create the world's first mammoth-elephant hybrid. This unique creature would have the hair, tusks, blood, and other physical characteristics of a woolly mammoth, though most of its genome would be that of an elephant. And believe it or not, Church says that we're only a few years away from this hybrid actually becoming a reality. Not only would this breakthrough successfully resurrect a lost species, but it'd also have a significant impact on our current climate crisis. By grazing the Arctic tundra once more, the mammoths would reveal the earth beneath and allow contact with the cold air to keep it frozen longer. The resurrection of the woolly mammoth is the first manifestation of something much bigger, said Christian Fry, the documentarian that covered the historic 2013 find. You can't say where this is all going, but it will be definitely the next big technological evolution. Yet when we think of woolly mammoths roaming the Arctic, they feel too far out of reach to even imagine. While the last woolly gave up the ghost tens of thousands of years ago, their needs were quite similar to the needs of present-day herbivores. However, there's a lot we didn't know about these monstrous mammals. Most of the woolly mammoths found the Arctic's mainland to be home, but a group of them were residing elsewhere. The Arctic's Wrangel Island, just off the coast of East Siberia, held a bundle of woolly mammoths, and for one reason or another, which we'll get to, they outlived the woolies living in the Arctic's mainland. There was something special happening on Wrangel Island. In fact, this was no fluke. The Wrangel Island mammoths outlived the mainland mammoths by 7,000 years. What's even crazier is that the island woolies died off just 4,000 years ago. Let's put that in perspective. The last of the woolly mammoths went extinct after the ancient Egyptians built the pyramids at Giza, which contradicts what scientists had once thought. But why? Well, research done by Laura Arpe, of the Finnish Museum of Natural History, and her colleagues digs deeper into the mysterious survival and extinction of the island mammoths. They were determined to find out what catastrophic event destroyed this fascinating species. Using mammoth teeth and bones found on the island, they detected the nature of the group's diet, nutrition, and metabolism. They then analyzed their carbon and nitrogen isotopes, which help interpret the nutrition and metabolic functioning of the woolies prior to their extinction. A 2017 study showed that a genomic meltdown induced the demise of the woolly mammoths, as the species experienced mutations that caused severe problems. They couldn't synthesize proteins, which caused a loss of smell, for instance. Laura found something different. While the 2017 study, which was published in PLOS, offered a complex, seemingly plausible scenario, Laura's findings exhibit that something much simpler led to the extinction of these graceful beasts. Laura's research began with examining the dietary well-being of the Wrangel Island mammoths in order to gauge a potential lack in resources. Based on this, Laura found no alarming long-term changes in habitat or climate. No one had looked at what was going on with the dietary ecology of the Wrangelian mammoths, and with all these other observations related to diet, it was high time to do so, Laura said. Judged from the numbers of radiocarbon-dated mammoth bone finds on Wrangel Island, this last island population appears to have vanished rather abruptly, she continued. This had Laura perplexed, so she and her team were on the woolly case. And since major changes in climate and range reduction happened way before the mammoths went extinct, approximately 4,000 to 6,000 years prior, it likely had nothing to do with their fateful collapse. So, again, what exactly happened to these island guys 4,000 years ago? Well, though it wasn't related to climate change, the evils of Mother Nature still could have caused mass starvation via icing events. When rain on snow created a hard, icy ground, it became impenetrable to the poor, hungry woolly mammoths, who needed to eat their greens and other nutritious plants, such as poppies, buttercups, and anemones. Though the dietary well-being of the Wrangel Island mammoths was nearly the same as that of the Siberian mammoths, the island mammoths had one superior trait, a trait that could explain their extended survival. The island mammoths used their fat reserves during freezing winters, and the Siberian mammoths didn't. But unfortunately, the fat reserves didn't save the island mammoths from the icing events. In fact, these icing events affected a plethora of Arctic herbivores. 20,000 musk oxen were starved to death in 2003 in the Canadian Arctic due to a rain on snow event, Laura relayed. While Laura and her team thoroughly believe the icing events acted as the beginning of the end for the mammoths, they also suspect there could have been a lack of healthy fresh water. Next, Laura and her team aim to study the water quality to either reject or confirm the hypothesis that the drinking water supply of the animals had high levels of harmful or even toxic elements released from the local bedrock. Right now, it's still a mystery. While Laura and her team unleashed a brilliant anomaly in the world of Arctic research, the true reason behind the woolly mammoth's extinction may forever be an enigma. Meanwhile, one of her contemporaries was focused on uncovering the truth about another mysterious extinction. Most people would consider a preoccupation with bones concerning, though Robert De Palma's love of the dead and buried is anything but peculiar. An aspiring paleontologist, the 37-year-old managed to turn his lifelong passion into a curator position for the Palm Beach Museum of Natural History. But De Palma is perhaps best known for the widely publicized discovery he made near Bowman, North Dakota, in 2012. After receiving a tip from a private fossil collector, De Palma and his team began excavating a site along the well-known Hell Creek Formation. Initially, De Palma felt the site, dubbed Tanis, had little promise, something the collector had made him privy to prior to the excavation. However, after returning to Tanis in 2013, the paleontologist discovered there was more to this unassuming patch of rock than met the eye. Just a few meters below the surface, De Palma discovered a host of rare and unusual fossils, including those of species he claimed to have never seen before. It was an incredible find, though one set of bones in particular caught De Palma's eye, and left him positively stumped. Beneath the skeleton of a freshwater paddlefish, De Palma discovered the tooth of a mosasaur, an enormous reptilian predator that made its home in the oceans of the early Cretaceous period. This puzzled De Palma and his team, for there was no way this creature could have existed in the fresh waters of prehistoric North Dakota. The layout of the find was also unusual, the fossils deposited haphazardly and some skeletons even buried vertically in the dirt. Combined with the fact that tektites, small bits of natural glass created from meteor impacts, were also present, everyone was left scratching their head. Then, a light bulb went off. Could the tektite fragments found in the Tanis deposit have been scattered here by the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs? While some researchers would be quick to accept such a theory, the plausibility of this scenario isn't exactly cut and dry. The widely held belief that an asteroid impact caused the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event is primarily based on the presence of the KT layer. This 66-million-year-old band of Earth stretches over nearly the entire globe and contains a high level of iridium, an element primarily found in asteroids. This theory is also supported by the Chicxulub crater, a 112-mile impression in the Yucatan Peninsula that contains the same mineral makeup as the KT layer. Therefore, most scientists assume that the asteroid that created this crater scattered the iridium debris that ultimately wiped out the dinosaurs. If this were the case, then, one would expect to find plenty of fossils in the KT layer. After all, it was during this time that nearly all life on Earth went extinct. However, this actually isn't true at all. Hardly any fossils have ever been found in this layer of rock. In fact, most fossils are found about 10 feet below the KT layer, which, geologically speaking, would amount to thousands of years between the death of these creatures and the fateful asteroid impact. Therefore, it seems highly unlikely that an extraterrestrial object reduced every last dinosaur to rubble. Proponents of this alternate theory do still believe that an asteroid impact finished off the last of these prehistoric creatures, though they propose that factors like large-scale volcanic activity and climate change had already wiped out most of the dinosaurs by this point. However, according to De Palma, the Tanis find was the key to finally putting this debate to bed. Not only were the fossils he discovered located within the KT layer, but their haphazard placement suggested they were deposited here just moments after the asteroid struck. With this information in mind, De Palma posited that the mile-high tsunamis created by the impact must have traveled up river valleys and into freshwater bodies, which is how the mosasaur tooth came to be here. This was big news. Eager to share his discovery with the world, De Palma sat down with the New Yorker to share the exclusive details of his historic find. However, as soon as the story broke in April 2019, the paleontology community grew outraged. Many of De Palma's colleagues were upset that the paleontologist had chosen to share his story with the New Yorker instead of a reputable scientific journal. De Palma later published his discovery in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, though many felt this account was significantly less detailed than his New Yorker piece. Even prior to this, however, De Palma was considered by some to be a controversial figure in the world of paleontology. In 2015, he introduced a new species of dinosaur he'd recovered from the Hell Creek Formation dubbed Dakotaraptor, though after presenting the completed skeleton, it was discovered one of the bones belonged to a turtle. De Palma also stirred up controversy with his business practices, as he retains all control of his specimens even after they've been placed in museums and university collections. He also reportedly funds his fieldwork by creating replicas of his finds and selling them to private collectors. But the strangest discrepancy of all may be De Palma's record of the discovery itself. While the paleontologist and his team have made claims about the large number of dinosaur fossils uncovered near the surface of the Tanis deposit, his article in PNAS only mentions one example in a supplementary document. As of now, additional papers on Tanis are being prepared that will hopefully clear up the confusion surrounding De Palma's find. Until then, one can only wonder if De Palma's discovery will truly change history or simply wind up as the fabrication of another would-be hero in search of fame and glory.